Okay, we're good. So 12:30, we're going to call the policy committee meeting to order. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we are privileged to meet on the unceded and ancestral territories of the Squamish and St'át'imc nations. First item up is there's a agenda recommendation. Thank you, Cynthia. Is there a second for that? Thank you, April. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, then that's accepted. Next up, we have the minutes. Thank you, Cynthia. A second for that. Thank you, April. Are there any objections? Seeing and hearing none, and that's carried. I don't think there are any trustee items at this point. Nope. No presentations. Information items. So leave of public office. And Danielle, you have an update for us?
Yeah, so as you recall, there was a request to have a policy for leave, to provide leave for employees to serve in public office. So we reached out to BCPC to ask for an opinion on what we're allowed to do for that. So what they've told us is, with respect to unionized staff, teachers and support staff, paid and unpaid leaves are a matter to be collectively bargained. And so that matter does not belong in board policy, as according to BCPC. And for exempt staff, the employer is obligated to follow what is in the employee's contracts. Just wait for the bell. Okay, so they're obligated to follow what's in the employee's contracts for leaves, or what is required by the Employment Standards Act. And with no policy, anything that is beyond the Employment Standards Act and the contract would be at the employer's discretion. And it says the employer would retain the ability to say yes or no and do what is right in the specific set of circumstances, whatever it may be, whether it's investing in an employee by granting the leave or denying the leave due to operational capacity. Yeah.
And that's only for exempt staff.
That's right. Okay.
What was the original intent was to develop a policy? Yeah, so let's go ahead.
Yeah, so the intent was to develop a policy for the organization as a whole. So for all staff, exempt, unionized. What is interesting to me is that the advice that policy couldn't be developed for all staff is curious to me, because I know that there's other organizations that have both exempt and unionized staff who do have policy that dictate leaves like this. So I would want to explore that further, because I think that that might not be true, that it's what you're saying is that it's impossible to develop policy for unionized employees. I don't think it is impossible. It's possible to do it. It would be entirely separate from the collective agreement. You know, employees can be impacted by things like the collective agreement or policy.
This is on the advice of a lawyer, so I'm obviously going to defer to the legal advice we're getting.
Okay, Cynthia.
It sounded to me that is not impossible to do it, but it's outside of our purview. That is something that's done. And then they bargained. They said, yes, we're going to bargain this. Oh, sorry. They said, yes, we're going to bargain this. And then both sides agreed that we would have something that looks like what you're asking about. Then that would come into their collective agreement.
No, I'm what I'm saying is that policy can exist separate from a collective agreement. You don't have to bargain that sort of thing. There's policy that can apply to the organization as a whole, and the collective agreement can exist separately beside it as its own thing. But you can have policy alongside a collective agreement with policy applying. I don't think that what the information that you received is correct, is what I'm saying, because other organizations have done this for both unionized and non-unionized employees. And if it were within Canada, and if it were impossible, then they wouldn't have been able to do it.
April has her hand up.
Two things. One, I would concur with the legal advice, because I believe that the collective agreement sort of supersedes any sort of policy. So if it's not in the collective agreement, it couldn't be, a policy couldn't trump that. And the other thing is that as far as a union, when a union, as we all know, when a union enters bargaining, they have priorities. And from my own experience, and not saying that, that it's not possible, but I would never see this as rising to the top of a priority, a bargaining priority, at least for the BCTF.
I think the other thing I would want to consider about this is I did give it a lot of thought afterwards. And the thing that really resonated me was something that Chris said about our not attendance, but like our failure to fill rates, and how we don't actually need more support, because if our schools were fully staffed every single day, we would have all the support we need for kids. So if we were making another opportunity for people to not be there, are we doing a disservice to kids? Would be my first question, is how is that going to impact kids? And then also, how does this affect the ultimate goal of our organization, which is improving student outcomes? And so if it doesn't, for me, if we can't say yes to either of those things, I'm not really sure if it's something that's about education. And at the heart of it, we're an organization that's about education of students.
So jump in. So you've brought this forward, Celeste, so I'm wondering, have you been approached? Have staff been asking if they could do this? Because we're spending an awful lot of time and money now investigating it. So I was just curious if it's a request.
I don't know if Chris wants to go first. I'm happy to speak to it, but if you want to, you had your hand up first.
Yeah, my comment was, and maybe it's again to the board after the fact. I think that Celeste is asking us to investigate, and we investigated through BCPC. I'm not opposed from staff perspective on your behalf or through the chair to bring the question to BCSTA in case there's other folks that have been looking at this, and then the debate or the question as to whether or not the board wants to support such a motion, I believe is actually separate from Celeste's initial question, which is it possible to do that? So I just from procedural, I just want to support procedure and say that from my perspective, I don't want to speak for Danielle, but I don't think it'd be too onerous for us to continue with the conversation with BCSTA to get another opinion. And then when that's provided, then the board as a whole will determine, and Celeste will determine if she wants to put it forward as a motion or not after that. And then the board can have the debate.
Vote,
Mhm.
yeah.
So I just want to support the process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, this is more about like a societal perspective. And usually the policies that I've read, there is, as Danielle said, the releasability of a person lies with the organization. So it's not carte blanche permission to leave the position. There would, it would be a leave request, and it would be like a provision to allow for that in situations where it's operationally feasible. For some positions, releasability might be more difficult than others. In terms of supporting education, what I'm proposing is to allow to make it possible to open the door for people who are working in and have that expertise within the area of public education to go and serve in public office and have the opportunity to do things like impact policy at either a provincial level or a federal level, or within another school district. You couldn't work for this school district and take leave to serve on our board, or within your municipality. So it's about, you know, if you want to talk about like the greater societal impact that it might have on public education, I think that releasing teachers or EAs or any of the subject matter experts that we have working within this particular work area, go and serve in public office and influence people within those fields who might not understand what is happening in public education today, is a very, very important thing that we ought to be reducing barriers to, because we want people on the grander political scale to understand the pressures that people working within public education are facing. This is like, nobody came forward to me and said, ask for this. This is me just thinking about structurally, how can we allow subject matter experts to have more impact on policy? That it's totally, that's it, right?
And I think I'll add in, I don't see anybody else have their hand up, that I support the concept and understand where you're coming from, because I think we need more people in public office. However, when we ask staff to investigate something and they investigate it and come back with an answer from experts, I also want to support that process and say, okay, yeah, you know, it's not like we don't believe you. It's, you know, you did your homework and thank you very much for doing that for us. I have no problem getting in touch with Carolyn and Suzanne at BCSTA to ask the question as well. But I just want to remind ourselves that, you know, when you ask BCPC something and then say, I don't believe it, because I think it can happen. And they're lawyers and they're experts in their fields as well. So just a caution for myself. You know, that's what I think. Anything else? So going forward, I will ask BCSTA. I'll send an email to them and just ask the question. Okay, with that, then I think we can move forward. So we have some new policies brought forward. So Chris, policy 107, anti-racism.
Okay, so before I share the policies, I just want to draw everybody's attention. I'm not sure if folks had a chance to take a look and review, because we actually haven't had new policy brought forward in quite a while. And we do have policy 207, which lays out the process for bringing new policy forward. So to be really clear, what we're asking for, once we go through each policy, if the board so deems, the policy committee to bring forward to the board, I should say, is we're looking for, again, as named in policy, as an approval in principle. An approval in principle just means that the board has agreed or approved that this can now go out for more impact and consultation. We did not do any consultation prior to the development of these policies, as that doesn't follow our procedure. So the opportunity for the feedback from public, from folks, if they, again, we have a inclusion committee or other subgroups that may be very interested in some of these policies, is the 60-day process that follows. So I just wanted to make that really clear, and we'll share that, or I would ask, sorry, I will ask board to also share that in public. So one of the trustees, either Rachel or Celeste from Policy Committee, to share that out at the public board meeting, so it's really clear what the board approval is for. So these will not appear on our formal list of policies. We have a report later from Public Relations Committee about how we'd like to move forward with this. So just to be clear, this is just the broad strokes, visioning statements for policy. And I'll also share that I am speaking to these on behalf of Kim Sadra, our Director of Instruction for Equity, Diversity, Inclusion, who worked on the anti-racism and accessibility policy, and environmental sustainability 109 was drafted by Colleen Hanna, our Director of Indigenous Education. Okay, so with that, shall I just draw everyone's attention first to the anti-racism policy 107. Again, at the 100 level foundational policy level, we spoke about this earlier as a policy that we wanted to bring forward. We are aware of, especially in recent days, the real focus on anti-racism and seemingly growing division in our society, and wanting to have a separate policy for anti-racism that is really clear, relatively short, but very clear on who we strive to be as a community and as a district in our communities, and to just be really clear on who we strive to be in some clear statements of intent and belief, and in reference to our existing policies. So we're aware that anti-racism is actually covered in a number of other policies, but wanted to bring it up to a foundational level, you know, for as long as it's needed when it's not needed anymore, because I think we have an opportunity to, again, really ensure we're clear about what we stand for. So that's why it might seem a little repetitive. If you know the other policies, you might have some shared language around that, but again, the belief is that this is an important policy to bring forward.
You're just looking to introduce these? Are you looking for some input now?
So
Or-
thank you for that. Not input now, because the board as well has the 60 days and should be, again, can contribute. Will also share or can wait until the next board meeting in June to look at the feedback and the data and to go from there. Because we're following our policy for new policies, and it's just approval and principles. So that's why it has draft across it. So we're just looking for the approval and principle to say, yes, let's go forward with this policy. Let's see what the public has to say. And again, the PR committee will share out how we're going to do that. And then there'll be lots of opportunity for suggestions, revisions, etc. Unless there's something someone feels really strongly about that's terribly grading or missing. I mean, again, there'll be those opportunities for that input over the 60-day period. And even after then, I'll just finish, we may not be ready to pass it yet, right? It might go into next school year, which is absolutely fine.
So just so I'm clear, what we're passing now,
Not
Is-
passing anything, are we?
oh, I thought it was in principle.
Yeah,
We're passing the.
asking for an approval in principle,
Okay.
so that we can then go to our next steps in engaging public.
So the approval in principle is just I'm gonna try to simplify it for my own self, but just for the need for an anti-racism policy. In addition to what we already have. Is that what we're approving? Just basically the need to have a policy like this.
And putting this draft forward as the,
Okay,
So then they can
okay.
go and.
So it's a bit more than that. Okay,
that's right.
Then they can seek input from the public.
Yeah.
Right.
got
And
it.
it may stay the same.
right.
In principle, it might adjust, it might add 10 other things. That's really up to the board to decide once we have all the feedback.
Tim?
So you could just call this draft policy a jumping off point. In the language that's there. It's just where we're starting.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I guess I should explain, I said it earlier, I don't recall, but that we purposely did not go out to other subgroups or form committees about this, because according to our policy, we need to approve it in draft first and then put it out there for everyone.
So
Makes sense.
did you identify a void that we're missing these items, or is this something that's happening across other districts, or like, how did it come to be?
Yeah, I would say it's more from a social justice point of view, is that we have seen and have increased incidences, not just in our community, but in other places, you know, across the region, across the province, across the country, across the world.
So you or you and staff identified the need for these, and you're proposing it to the board.
That's right. Yes.
Okay. Jackie, anyone? Yeah, Celeste?
I would just say to acknowledge the work that's being done by the inclusion committee within this district. The accessibility policy is something that I think has been raised in that forum, certainly in meetings. So I think that staff are addressing things that have been discussed in committee for quite some time, if my memory serves correctly. So this is addressing what the public and parents and students have been asking for as well, to have something in writing in addition to what we already have. This draft is, from my understanding, from what we've discussed already, comes out of, best practices and policy written elsewhere. But the opportunity now is for local people to have the opportunity to provide feedback. The question that I had for you, Chris, was, does staff feel that starting the 60-day feedback process for all of these in tandem is the best approach, or to stagger it so that we aren't bombarding people with requests for input on reviewing policy is a difficult task at the best of times. So strategically, is there some advantage in perhaps approving in principle 1 today, doing 1 next month, 1 the following month, or would you rather have them all done today and then start that request for feedback from the public for all of them at once? When we were discussing it earlier in committee, in the public engagement committee, each of these alone could be a newspaper article, is something in the Chief or whatever local newspaper. And so is there a benefit to having them go out 1 at a time so that they each of these topics is important in their own right? And is there a benefit to having them covered locally in the media 1 at a time?
Yeah.
So I guess my first comment is, and thanks for bringing up the accessibility. I was going to do each one at a time to chat where they came from, but thank you for explaining accessibility. I'll just quickly touch on and then answer the other question. With 109, environmental sustainability, if folks recall, that request for a specific policy actually came from a very passionate, very smart, very passionate group of students from Worcester Secondary who have since graduated, and they had done a presentation to the board, to the earlier board as well. And so we wanted to honor their request as well. So that was the origin of that one, just so folks know where it's from. And so that sort of answered the origin stories for the policies. And then in terms of the order of approval, I'm absolutely not opposed to doing it all at once or spreading it out. I think Celeste makes some really good points about ensuring there's proper time and focus for each one, because it may be too much of an ask to have people comment on 3 policies when instead we can really do some nice work together on each one. It would just mean we're just deferring policy adoption, but I wouldn't be opposed to that. I would just say, in terms of where we are in the year, if there's one we'd like to have done for June, we would choose to do that at this meeting. And then I would suspect we would probably put off 60 days for the others until the start of the new school year, because we won't have folks available necessarily over the summer. The board won't necessarily meet. And I think that we want to ensure maximum opportunity for engagement and also for staff to do the work as well, because many staff will be off in the summertime. So no problem with doing 1 at a time if that's the board's decision. I would just say, if we go that route, I would ask that we look at approving 1 in principle today, and then do the other ones at the start of the new school year, whether we meet in August or September, to provide the time. So we won't get engaging until the summer. I don't believe that's
As soon as we approve it in principle, it starts the clock, or can we approve all 3 in principle and then introduce them staggered?
I think we can choose to do that. I'm not opposed. I don't think our policy It says there will be a 60-day,
Restrictive, yeah.
right? But it doesn't say, it does say following, let me just read the policy to make sure,
As determined by the
as
district.
determined by
There
the
we go.
district. So there we are. So we
So
we can do so.
that's an option.
Yes,
And
Like
if, and
easiest.
if staff doesn't feel like it is, imperative that we review them all right now and accept, so we might be looking at September, October before we'd approve a couple of them. If we get to that point.
well, or you can approve them all in principle, but we can determine that policy X you'd like to put out for the 60 days.
Yeah,
Now-
that's what I mean.
Then we'll I thought you said we wouldn't approve the other
No, no.
ones yet.
No,
Okay,
I just meant if we defer the 60 days
Yes,
on a couple of the
that's right.
policies, we don't meet in the summer.
right.
Staff is often taking their much deserved holidays over the summer.
Thank
So-
you. I didn't want to say that, so I appreciate you saying that. But I don't intend to do
Exactly.
policy
So-
in early.
And then, and then I'm not questioning like the need for these. I was just curious on the history behind them. And then the environmental thing, should we advance this? I would love to reach out to the student who brought it forward. Even though graduated and let them know
Mhm.
the outcome that their work brought forward.
And if they're, again, living in community, they also have the opportunity to provide feedback.
Yes.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, we can get their names. for
Odds
sure.
are a student somewhere so that
Yes.
their home residence is still considered. What's the, if that's.
Mhm.
where- So we're looking for a motion? Is that it? If we desire? How does that go?
Do you want a motion for all three in one, or do you want to do 3 motions or one?
Well, I think,
Is there anyone that opposes us
Sure, yes.
approving all three in principle? At once? Doesn't sound like it, so. Be prepared to make a motion? Oh,
sorry,
thanks.
may I
Yeah,
just add, I think it'd be important to capture the fact that instead of just being the general motion, that it should add to that. And that the consultation or public input process as determined by the board. Oh, okay. Thank you, Archie. Shit.
That the policy committee recommends the Board of Education grants an approval to send policy 107 anti-racism, policy 108 accessibility, and policy 109 environmental sustainability for the public impact process.
I think that covers, because it doesn't,
Process, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Process
we'll
covers-
talk about
I'm good.
it doesn't talk about timing at all.
Nope.
Just- Okay, thank you, April. Is there a second to that?
I'll do it.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Any
Hi, guys.
objections? Okay, seeing and hearing none, then that is accepted. With that, do we have a preference of which one we move first?
If any, you can also defer them all. It's completely up to you. I think if you do, my one thing about timing, because I'm a stickler for rules sometimes. It does say 60 days, so I think if you want to put one forward now, which I think is fine, you would also have to, I think, make a special motion maybe to waive the 60, because I just realized our next board meeting is on the 8th.
So it's not, it is not
Which
60
which
days.
isn't 60 days, and I
Okay.
apologize, I should have done the math earlier, but I just assumed that
You're thinking that.
we're a week short. So I don't
May-
know how it was about that.
For the May one.
Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, with the Accessibilities Act, do we not have a little bit more pressure to have things done with what's coming into play out of that?
No, actually, but thank you, it's an excellent question. So for schools, because we have inclusion, because we have a lot of things in place already, there's actually a little more latitude and leeway being given. So even
Okay.
our plan was what we had to have in place. And even that just had to say, and we've got one, but for some districts, we are working on a plan, was accepted. So
Oh.
there was no date attached to a policy.
Mhm.
Some districts are not going to have accessibility policy, but we're an inclusive district. We believe strongly in having one, and we wanted to honor again the inclusion committee's initial request to look at anti-ableism. And so we wrapped that up within accessibility. So there was no requirement to have policy around accessibility. Just a plan, which I know sounds a little ironic, but just in terms of timing, there is none. And I would suggest that the accessibility policy will probably take a little bit more nuance and
Finessing.
opportunity to meet. So I'd actually, my recommendation would be to defer that one until the new year. To
Okay.
really get into it, whereas the other two are more vision, sort of motherhood, fatherhood, I don't know what you say these days, statements about what we believe.
Generic.
in policy.
Mhm.
Cynthia?
Yeah, my question just around which ones we would move forward with sooner or later was around when DPAC meets next and when the inclusion committee meets next, because we'd want to give them time. Like they might, I don't know when they meet, but if they just met, they may not meet for another 4 weeks, and then that would only leave them with a short amount of time to review and put in input.
So inclusion committee meets on Monday, May 6th. And DPAC actually meets next Monday.
So that's not too bad.
Yeah. So in the other piece, Chris, in the timing wise,
Mhm.
we have some professional development on June 19th. Could we not have policy meeting to accept at that point?
Do we have a June? We have that as a,
And we have restorative justice on
Yeah,
that day, I think,
is it
or
extra
truth and
one?
rec. Truth
Next
and rec-
board meeting?
truth and rec-
yeah.
Truth and reconciliation on June 19th.
Mhm.
So providing we can
Uh,
achieve quorum.
We'd have just like a little ad hoc committee meeting. and-
Yeah. Did we not do that?
You can, the board.
When is the
Chief?
social justice meeting? May sometime. When is the
Social justice is May.
Yeah, the truth and reconciliation is on June 19th.
Right, so we have two,
Yes.
yes, two opportunities.
Well, no, we need the 60 days. So June 19th brings us past our 60
Oh,
days.
okay, gotcha.
Cause it's what, the 18th today or something?
Mm.
Yeah, okay.
But the June board meeting could be at 60 days.
Yeah,
No, it does.
It does.
Oh, it does.
Yeah,
You
the
would
May
does-
one does.
No, the June board meeting does, the extra board meeting. The June extra board meeting puts us there.
Can you just meet on the June board meeting?
The 12th, does that give us 60 days?
No.
No,
Oh,
That's
it
what I'm saying.
doesn't. That's
That's what he's saying. So I'm
Sorry,
suggesting the
May, I meant
19th,
June.
because we have two
Mhm.
Yes.
Wednesdays in a row.
Right.
And the 19th is all,
Mhm.
we're already meeting for truth and reconciliation. So why
Again,
don't
that's-
we,
That's pleasure of the
Do it.
board. We'll collate whatever we need to do,
Yeah.
so.
any objections, Cynthia?
I would just like to make a suggestion that we move forward with the anti-racism policy and the environmental sustainability policy drafts first. And then get the feedback. And wait until September to carry on with the accessibility.
So you want to do two of them at the same time?
If the people representing the staff feel like that's feasible, I would say yes.
It's over to you. We're finding out the way because we're simply collating.
Sure.
and
Okay,
helping
well,
Set up meetings, so we're good either way.
I'll put it out, say two at once. If people want to say one at once, we can always say one at once.
Celeste?
I think based on past inclusion committee meetings that I've attended, I would say that people are chomping at the bit for the accessibility policy. And it sounds like based on what Danielle has just said with meetings coming up, we're having this meeting today, which is making it public. DPAC meets next week, the week after. So the inclusion committee meets, that would give them ample time to before June 19th or 20th, provide feedback. I think that my recommendation would be to deal with that one first. I also think there's benefit of dealing with them one at a time so that you can do that, media blast and really have people paying attention. But if I had to choose one, it would be 108 to do first.
And Chris, you just,
I'm nodding because I think the timing actually
Works.
makes good sense. We have.
okay,
we
you
have
had
feedback
just
Monday.
said that you
you
thought
just
we
said you
could
didn't,
defer
you
that
said you
one.
wanted to defer that one.
So
Yeah,
now-
I'm listening to Celeste and she's right. I wasn't paying attention to the dates that the folks meet.
Right,
And there'll be lots of interest and excitement and the timing will work. I was worried about time,
Yeah.
but because of the meetings coming up, it actually works well.
Then you'll get your feedback from the public and then we still have time to, I mean, do you have time to deal with it in the fall, Chris? Does that work?
Yes. Yep. Thank you for asking.
Okay. I don't know, like if, I think this one is the one that people are gonna jump on right away, you know, like, because I know from attending those meetings, people have been talking about this for a long time.
I have no objection to that at all. April?
I agree with Celeste. The people on that committee definitely are wanting this policy. And I think for that purpose, we should put it up there. But I think in terms of school climate and things that are going on in buildings, that the first one, the anti-racism one, may be more needed at that level, like in a school now, when it's happening in buildings. So my recommendation is with what Cynthia said, let's do those two and then put the other one on. I think two, we could probably manage. I can't put one ahead of the other one. That's my problem.
All right. Cynthia?
I think that sounds good. I think,
I'm not a
Celeste, I think like, yeah, with it. I know, I was listening to what Chris was saying and then what you're saying with if the inclusion committee is really looking for something like this, I think that we should move forward with it if it's okay. And then really, if the other two are just sort of, what did you call them, grandfather or grandmother? What was that phrase you used? Statements?
That's probably the wrong wording, but it's
Oh.
more of like a.
It's a mother's.
Motherhood statement.
A motherhood state, I never heard
It's
that term
also-
before. Like if I interpret a motherhood.
Complimentary to moms. It's saying close to our heart in this,
Yeah.
we believe it's like, yes.
Okay, I might not have quite
Okay.
understood that statement. Okay,
So
I'd say that
we
let's go for
passed our
two.
policy. What I think I'm hearing, at least the majority saying, or at least those who are speaking, that we move forward with the accessibility to be brought to our June meeting. The board meeting date doesn't meet our timeline, so we already are meeting on the 19th of June. So can we bring it there?
Mhm.
And speak up if anyone's opposed. And then the other two will bring forward in September. Start the process.
No, bring forward the two now.
Mhm.
The two, the
I
anti-racist.
thought you were saying accessibility as well. I'll
I was saying accessibility and
So,
anti-racist,
what-
and bring those two forward.
Okay,
which
do
is
we
what
have
Cynthia-
that?
Okay, I was gonna say if the other two were just these motherhood statements, then why don't we just bring all three at once? But I didn't quite understand what this motherhood statement meant. Which so
Like an
which would mean that
overarching-
my other comment wouldn't have made any sense.
But I don't think the
Um,
anti-racism
but-
one was the motherhood one. It was the other two.
I think, okay, let's forget about the motherhood statement because I don't even know what that phrase
We don't
really
know what it
actually
is,
means. Chris is much smarter than I am. But I do agree with what April said. I think we should try for the two, the accessibility and the anti-racism, because then I think that would really meet the needs of the schools and it would also meet the needs of the accessibility committee.
Are there any objections to that approach? No, I agree. Okay. So that's it.
On June 19th.
And June 19th, we can set a special meeting of the policy committee. Oh,
What I would,
and
say-
the board?
It would have to be a special board.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
with one item.
Special
just
board
all-
meeting.
policies.
Yeah.
Policies.
yeah, we can do them.
And I would suggest we do that before we do the
Yeah, me too.
truth and reconciliation, because that can be pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Truth and reconciliation. To do that after that, it might be tough.
Yeah.
Well, you decide that.
Yep.
You just
And
tell us-
again,
you
there's-
just
there's-
tell us what to do.
There's no pressure to approve, right? This is just 60 days. It may be, wow, there's actually a lot more work that
Right.
needs to do. And I think sometimes with policy, with respect to any public listening, it's understanding policy versus operations, because sometimes the public want more operational things within
Right.
policy, and that's our work to do around like those pieces too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, do we, I think we have a decision. I'm not seeing or hearing. Oh, Celeste?
Do you need a motion?
I don't,
The
Think
motion
we
was
need a
already, I read the
motion.
motion already.
No, I think Celeste has to need a motion to,
For the,
Just-
for the-
the order, I think. we should, just to have it
do,
in-
do we? Because I thought that was covered under the process.
Process?
I think so, yeah. let's
Because
do
it
that.
says in the policy that as determined by the board.
I think you do because of the 60-day thing for the other one,
I think it would be, I think it'd behoove you to just have a motion. to-
Okay.
for the
because
order.
one
Yeah,
won't be within
that's fine.
60
Public record.
days.
So
You're on.
you're a rock star.
Even though-
aren't you?
Pressure, pressure.
You can manage to get my lunch.
You me too.
Greasy table now. Will you check for questions of clarification from the public,
Oh.
please?
No questions.
Is she a minute?
Chris, do you need something in here to say like, we will give, have it through like an extension beyond the 60 days, or we don't? You know what I mean?
That's not- no.
You don't need to say that?
No, so the input process is as per
What is it?
policies, but ongoing work that the board does. Right, to ensure that they feel they incorporated and have time to discuss and debate. It is just always a standing item for policy. 60 days is just the public input process. It doesn't mean it has to be approved. So that in policy, it says it may be, if we got to the next meeting after, or it may be approved, right? Because you can't guarantee that it will be, right?
Anyone prepared to make a motion?
I can, if you want.
Yes, please.
That the policy committee recommends that the Board of Education sends policy 107 anti-racism and policy 108 accessibility for the public impact process as soon as possible, and sends policy 109 environmental sustainability for the public impact process in the fall.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. Is there a second for that? Thank you, April. Any objections? Seeing and hearing none, and that's carried. We have no questions of clarification from the public and have completed the business of this agenda and are adjourned at 1:13. Our next meeting is open, so we don't meet until 1:40.